Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. An Augustinian priest was shot dead while driving on the Cuitzeo-Huandacareo highway in the Mexican state of Michoacán. Fr Javier Garca Villafaa was killed on May the 22nd. This is the latest in a series of attacks on Catholic clergy in the Latin American nation. Fr Garca Villafaa served as the pastor of the San Marcos parish in Capacho, a town in the Huandacareo municipality. The Archdiocese of Morelia, to which the parish of San Marcos belongs, announced the priest's murder through Facebook. The state prosecutor's office assured that investigations will be carried out. The Catholic Multimedia Center reports that since the current president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, took office at the end of 2018, there have been 9 killings of Catholic priests. The head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church is urging the international community to stop Russia's midnight missile strikes. Major Archbishop Shevchuk of Kiev has called on the international community, heads of churches and religious organizations to appeal to Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop. This latest appeal comes after a Vatican announcement about sending a peace mission to Ukraine, as well as the World Council of Churches' willingness to engage Ukrainian and Russian leaders. During the 94th session of the Synod of Bishops of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, Archbishop Shevchuk said that nearly 18 million people need urgent humanitarian assistance. He added that Russia's missile and rocket attacks on Kiev and other cities had worsened food and water shortages. On Tuesday, a United Nations expert on human rights in Sudan referred to the level of suffering endured by civilians as dehumanizing. According to Radouane Nuisar, the African nation's collapse is resulting in horrific, tragic and brutal situations for civilians. He also said that human rights are being violated in the North African country. He added that the opposing military and paramilitary units have failed to respect their obligations under international humanitarian law. Meanwhile, residents of the capital city Khartoum reported hearing artillery fire and seeing jets fly overhead. This comes after earlier reports that the armed conflict in the city had somewhat subsided. Pope Francis will attend the international meeting on Human Fraternity. Titled Not Alone, it will take place at 4 p.m. on the 10th of June in St. Peter's Square and in 8 other squares in cities around the world. The Vatican's Fratelli Tutti Foundation said thousands of young people from throughout the world will attend the event at St. Peter's Square, along with 30 Nobel Prize winners. The Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development and the Dicastery for Communication are also involved in organising the event. The initiative intends to promote a culture of fraternity and peace and encourage personal commitment in choices and practices of reparation, dialogue and forgiveness in hopes of overcoming loneliness and marginalisation. Catholics in the United States are protesting against the decision of a prominent baseball team to reinvite an anti-Catholic homosexual group to a so-called Pride Night. This comes after the Los Angeles Dodgers issued a statement reinviting the so-called Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. This comprises homosexual men who dress as Catholic nuns and utter blasphemies at public events. The team have decided to confer the outfit with the Community Hero Award in the month of June, which some groups have dedicated to the homosexual movement. Speaking to Fox News, Brian Birch of the advocacy group Catholic Vote said that a Major League Baseball team should not be honouring something that is vulgar and grotesque. Representing the Los Angeles Archdiocese, Doris Benavides told Fox News that the decision to award a group that mocks the Catholic faith has caused disappointment, concern, anger and dismay from Catholics. The state of South Carolina in the United States appears to be becoming more pro-life. On Tuesday, lawmakers passed a bill that prohibits most abortions after the 6th week of pregnancy, during which a fetal heartbeat is detected. It is expected that Republican Governor Henry McMaster is slated to sign the bill into law. The new bill is an altered version of an earlier anti-abortion legislation that was struck down by the state Supreme Court as unconstitutional earlier this year. If the new bill overcomes legal hurdles, then it will stem the flow of pregnant women from other states with strict pro-life laws to South Carolina seeking an abortion. While pro-lifers have hailed the new legislation, pro-abortion outfits have promised to seek legal ways to block its enforcement. On Tuesday, thousands of people demonstrated in the Tigray region of northern Ethiopia to call for the return of those who have been displaced by a 2-year war and for the removal of foreign forces. A truce was reached in November following the deaths of thousands in the conflict between government forces and their supporters from nearby Eritrea and the Amhara area on one side and Tigrayan forces on the other. Humanitarian workers claim that the Eritrean military is still present in a number of border towns in Ethiopia. Demonstrators peacefully rallied on Tuesday in several major cities such as Mekele, Adigrat and Shire. The Tigrayan authorities are voicing their displeasure over the presence of outside forces in the region. The United Nations and other international organisations are helping to address the humanitarian crisis and to end the conflict. Due to ongoing restrictions on media access, verifying the situation on the ground remains a challenge. An abducted Nigerian priest has been freed after 3 days of captivity. Father Jude Kingsley Maduka was released unharmed on the 22nd of May. He was taken by unidentified armed men on the 19th of the month while inspecting the site of a new adoration centre in Imo State. The Chancellor and Secretary of the Catholic Diocese of Okigwe, Father Prince Will Iwanyawu, announced the return of the priest in a statement. Father Maduka was ordained over a decade ago and is the priest of Christ the King parish in the Okigwe Council area. US evangelist Franklin Graham is warning members of Christian media groups and others about what he terms the coming storm headed toward churches and ministries in the country. The head of the Samaritan Purse's humanitarian aid outfit was speaking at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Orlando, Florida. Addressing the event, he said everything needs to be prepared for the coming storm as the world has deteriorated so quickly. Mr. Graham said believers in the United States are living in a cancel culture that wants to destroy Christian organisations. He exhorted the gathering not to apologise for the gospel, but to declare and preach it. Fresh violence broke out in India's Manipur state on Monday, May the 22nd, stoking fears of intensified hostilities. In the latest round of attacks, 2 houses were burned down by a mob in the Imphal East district. However, there were no reports of casualties in the acts of arson. The incident took place after 4 armed men forced people to close shops. It is reported that the mob manhandled one of the miscreants responsible for the arson. The other 3 were then arrested by police. According to Chief Minister Biren Singh, one of the trio is a former lawmaker. The state has been hit by clashes between the mostly Hindu Meitei and the Christian-dominant Cuitzeo tribal communities since the beginning of the month. Army personnel rushed to the area to defuse the situation by using tear gas canisters. In the melee, local residents staged a protest by burning tyres on the road. A curfew in Imphal East has once again been tightened following the incident. A Christian teacher in Britain has been expelled after refusing to use the preferred pronouns of a gender-confused student. Joshua Sutcliffe intends to appeal the Teaching Regulation Agency's ruling that found him guilty of engaging in unprofessional behaviour and permanently barred from teaching. Mr. Sutcliffe was dismissed in 2017 after allegedly misgendering a female student at his school who identified as a boy. Subsequently, while teaching at a different school, he resigned following criticism over a video he had posted on his personal YouTube channel expressing his opinions on Islam. Although legal disputes with both schools were resolved, the Teaching Regulatory Agency chose to look into the complaints against Mr. Sutcliffe. The Professional Conduct Panel decided to bar him from teaching after finding him guilty of unprofessional conduct and bringing the profession into disrepute. The Vatican Secretary of State has praised Pope John Paul I's enormous contribution to world peace in a new book titled The Magisterium of John Paul I, a historic and theological study through archival papers. Cardinal Pietro Parolin said that Pope John Paul I strengthened the structure of the Church and continues to be an unalienable part of reference throughout the entire Church. The Cardinal expressed his gratitude for being able to present his studies, which are promoted by the John Paul I Vatican Foundation. Lasting just 33 days in 1978, John Paul I's pontificate was the shortest in modern papal history. American faith-based adoption service New Hope Family Services has won its second legal battle against the state of New York. This comes after officials from another state agency tried to penalise the adoption agency for upholding its Christian beliefs. The most recent victory for religious liberty follows a prior decision in favour of New Hope by a federal court. In New Hope Family Services versus James, the adoption agency argued that because of its religious beliefs, the government shouldn't prevent it from carrying out its task of finding permanent homes for infants with impairments or other hard-to-place issues. Though federal courts concluded that the state had probably violated New Hope's First Amendment rights by trying to force it to violate its religious convictions in a separate dispute between New Hope and another New York state agency, the state agency still issued the organisation with intimidating information requests. After 18 months of restoration work, the 1,500-year-old St. Nicholas Church in Turkey's Antalya is once again welcoming visitors and believers. The ancient church in the Demre district stands on the premises of a plot of land that is believed to be the resting place of St. Nicholas of Myra. This wonder-working saint, invoked by both Catholics and Orthodox believers, inspired the figure of Santa Claus. The restoration project was financed by the Turkish government and involved archaeologists and other experts. Minister of Culture and Tourism Mehmet Nuri Ersoy says he is looking forward to the sacred site becoming a place of worship and pilgrimage for Christians in the years to come. Experts carried out extensive work to protect the monument, which is 3 feet below sea level, so that the vagaries of weather and groundwater do not corrode the stones and its foundation. They also retouched the church's Byzantine murals and floor mosaics. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more, and do remember, you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom!